Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at the unique item known as Frostburns. Frostburns are items that came from Diablo 2, and as you'll see on the... as you probably already noticed on the graphic, I used the Frostburn graphic from Diablo 2. And that's really because, well, these are the Frostburns from Diablo 2. They pretty much are, anyway. Now, in this game, they have some slight changes to them to make them more, applicable to the way that this game works. But for the most part, they follow the same spirit of the Frostburns, which we know and love. As you can see, they are ancestral uniques. Now, these can be sacred or ancestral. They can be found in Tier 3 or Tier 4. And depending on your character level, they can be higher or lower. They have a crit chance bonus on them between 3 and 8%, and this does go up a little bit if you actually upgrade them. So if you upgrade them to their maximum, you get more effect out of them. You also get a 10% cold damage bonus, which does vary from 7 to 14, and an 8% freeze duration increase, which varies from 5 to 12%. Now that freeze duration bonus increase is actually kind of interesting, and I'm not exactly sure how long of an increase that is in terms of like specific individual freezes, but 12% definitely does seem like a lot, and it certainly would be an interesting addition to a freezing character. We also have Lucky Hit, up to a 5% chance to restore 12% primary resource. Now that rolls between 7 to 14%, and because it is a Lucky Hit, it's going to be a rather low percentage unless you are a Lucky Hit build. And to give you an idea of that, it doesn't really take much on a calculator to figure this out. The calculation is actually quite simple. So what I do is I take my weapon ability. So for instance, my Bone Spear is a 50% lucky hit chance. I go 0.5 because 50% is 0.5. That's how it works. You just move the decimal place over 2 times. Then we have the effect. Let's go ahead and put them on for right now. The effect is 5% chance, right? So we multiply that times 0.05, which is 5%. And then we get a total of 2.5%, which is not really very high. And then we take our lucky hit chance, so whatever our lucky hit chance increases. So my lucky hit chance bonus is currently 0. But let's say we had a 20% lucky hit chance increase on this particular page. We would multiply that by 1.2, which is going to get us a total percent chance to actually proc the effect of 3%. Now, that is actually not really high, but certain characters probably could take advantage of that better than others. Most notably, I'm thinking, is the Ice Shards Sorceress, the one that fires like 1,000,000 ice shards for every monster that's frozen nearby, which could potentially equal up to some pretty crazy damage. Now, it also could potentially equal up to some pretty crazy resource regeneration. The next effect, which is the most important one here, is the Lucky Hit, up to 24% chance to freeze enemies for 2 seconds. So basically what this is doing is it's allowing you to hit a target and potentially just instantly freeze them, which is really cool. 24% is pretty high, and it does go up to 25. So assuming, of course, that you had a perfect set, in my case, that would be 0.5 times 0.25, which would give me a total of a 12.5% chance for that freeze to happen. And of course, if I multiplied in my 1.2, my 20%, increase, that would be about a 15%. And of course, the higher your lucky hit bonus is, the better that would be. And just for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice my minions real quick so that we can show off this, because we don't really need the minions around making things more complicated. So let's go outside and let's play around with the Frosties. And let's see how well they work. So supposedly, if this does exactly what it says, I should be able to pretty much just shoot a monster, and of course I've got way too much damage. Let me take off my spear. Oh, so I can't even use the ability unless I have something in my hand. Let's just put something in my hand, shall we? So as you can see, my character is not really set up for the freeze. And despite the fact that I can hit the targets multiple times, I'm not really dishing out the freeze to them like I would want to, because I'm just not really set up for lucky hit. I've got a 12.5% chance that it's going to happen, and As you can see, sometimes it might happen, most of the time it's not for me. And this is really what you really have to understand about Lucky Hit, is that if you're not really set up for Lucky Hit, it's not really going to give you the effect. And there we go. We got 1 out of like 4 monsters all nice and frozen. Let's try again. There we go. We killed him with a freeze. Shattered into 1,000 bits. And as you can see, it's going to go off like mediocrely for me. It's a proccing effect. It's just like in Diablo 2, you know, like you'd have a proccing effect and you take it out and you go play with it, and it's like, oh, well, that doesn't really go off often enough to be useful. But the problem with that is that, well, you know, it's not necessarily the case with this. So because of the fact that you can enhance your proccing effects by quite a bit, which basically means that I can go through the process of putting on items that have a higher lucky hit chance, I could potentially get some crazy effects if I did a lucky hit build. And to kind of show you what I mean, let's run this calculation again with a, you know, a different like lucky hit percentage. So let's say I stacked lucky hit percentage on every single piece of my equipment so that I had like 100% enhancement to lucky hit, right? Well, in my case right now, I'm at a 50% lucky hit on my ability. Now you can enhance this, by the way. A lot of characters have passive abilities and things like that that will actually increase the lucky hit percentage of an ability. So I could potentially increase it to say 0.6 instead of 0.5, or maybe even 0.7, depending on what my passives are. Sorceress does have a lucky hit passive, if I remember correctly. Then you multiply that by your lucky hit percentage of 25%, so 0.25, which gives you more 17.5. And then if I say I had, instead of 20%, let's say I had 100% bonus lucky hit chance. You know, then we're looking at times 2, which is actually a pretty nice. And we're looking at a 35% chance that that freeze is going to go off on a regular basis. And as you can see, just a little bit of conditioning, a little bit of changing the way that your character works into a more of a lucky hit build could definitely take advantage of not only the resource regeneration on Frostburns, but also the freeze effect on Frostburns. Now, what characters could potentially get really good use out of this? Well, pretty much any character that uses freeze effects and lucky hit together. Ice shards would be a really powerful one that I can think of right off the top of my head. But the necromancer might also be able to get good use out of this, utilizing things like, for instance, the skeletal mages with the cold mages. That could be an interesting way to go about it, stacking various forms of cold damage. You could also utilize things like the Bloodless Scream, which I think I still have on me. And the Bloodless Scream also has the ability to chill enemies by 40%, creating frozen enemies as well, which is actually pretty nice, and generating essence, 100% chance to generate essence, 5 essence every single time you attack a frozen enemy, which is pretty interesting. So in combination between the Bloodless Scream and the Frostburns, there could be some very interesting combinations there. And I think the Frostburn Gauntlets definitely make an interesting choice for specific character builds. Mainly revolving around freezing effects, obviously. But also, you know, you get the nice resource regeneration as well, which if you compare to the original Frostburns gave you a huge amount of mana, which also in turn meant you got a huge amount of regeneration as well. And they also gave you a little bit of damage. A lot of people forget that Frostburns actually give you damage. It's a weird modifier. All in all, I'm actually very impressed with Frostburns. As you can see, it also has a flavor text, a touch so frigid, it stops their heart and chills the very soul. I'm actually pretty happy that I found these because I did have some plans for these to try and make some various different builds around them. I do eventually plan to do a lucky hit build. This character, unfortunately, is not a lucky hit build character, so it's going to be something that I do in the future, but we'll play around with that. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you watching my videos, guys and gals, and as always, keep watching.